And it was on this day, June 23rd, 2024, that I finished Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, which is probably the best book I've ever read in my life. I mean, it competes, guaranteed for sure. I'm pretty sure I could say it's the best book I've ever read in my life, but we'll put a little dot just in case. So far, keyword. Holy shit, this is a good book. It's big. It's big. I mean, look, it's it's big. There's a lot of pages. And there was a break in between, as y'all probably noticed, because school caught up with me, and then I was worried because again I didn't remember the beginning, just like the last few times this has happened. But I started listening to it at work with the audiobook, and I got like almost most of the way through it, and then I had to finish it physically because my loan with the audiobook ran out. With only like 4 chapters left too, which is inconvenient. Um, God, this is a fucking good book. Like this is a such a good. It's I can't. This isn't conveying it. This is seriously one of the best books I've ever read. Probably the best book I've ever read. Just all the stuff in it. I know some people where their favorite is Words of or their favorite is Way of Kings because it's the first one. I know some people that love Words of Radiance, and I know a lot of people who love Oathbringer. Oh, I think I gotta go with Oathbringer, but I definitely get the nostalgia and everything with Way of Kings, and Words of Radiance also kicked ass. Like they're all great books. This book, so good. So, with all that, we'll get into non-spoilers. I don't even really know what to say for non-spoilers. I have a bunch of notes here from when I was reading my book at work. However, most of these are spoilers. It's almost entirely spoilers. I love all the characters. I love and adore all the characters, even the bad characters. I like being in all the characters' perspectives, even if they're not doing the wisest decisions or not being the most helpful to the main characters. Um, I have respect for any author that can write point of views from the enemy or like this is one of those books where it gets super complicated when you start using the words enemy or like the antagonists. But we'll just say antagonists for simplicity. I have mad respect for any author that puts you in the perspective of the antagonists and uses it as a device throughout the story, and it is very consistent here. I also have mad respect when the author can show you the bad, like have conversations with the antagonist as the main character. Mad respect. I've always loved it in every story I've ever read. This book fucking killed it. I loved every time that happened. I also love books where when a character appears or it's in a character's perspective, I yell in joy. That's probably a good sign in a book. That happened several times with a certain character that I still adore with my soul, like all the way down. And every time he's on page, I'm like jumping in joy. That's another thing. And that's another thing. Any book that makes me literally hopping in my seat like this while I'm reading it, even at a work lunch function, is probably a good sign. Which I got made fun of for. But I was towards the end of the book and I was reading it at work because I was very caught up in the book. And I was literally just like doing this in my seat because I was just like, yes, yes, yes. And I had to like refrain from like commenting out loud because I was so excited about what I was reading. So it's been a journey reading this book, especially at work, trying not to react out loud because it's there's some fantastic moments. When I was listening to it in the car when I was driving, because I had to drive like a state over, I was literally responding out loud to what was happening. And a certain scene happened, which we'll talk about spoilers, where I cried in joy. It was great. It's fantastic. So that's a good sign. Characters are great. Various scenes that I've mentioned. The plot is great. The pacing actually isn't slow for a book this big. I would say, I mean, like I don't remember the beginning, so maybe I can't comment on the beginning. But I just read 30% onward, so I only don't remember the 30% that well. But the other 70% I remember well, and it's stacked in a good way. Like it has the like it has like the diplomatic sides, but then it has the action. It has the flashbacks. The flashbacks are also great. This is my favorite flashback so far of the three. No offense, Kaladin. Your flashbacks were a little low for me by comparison. The flashbacks in the last book were all Shalon's, right? So Shalon's were pretty good. I did like Shalon's flashbacks, but these flashbacks, oh, these were spicy, and they really, because it was the flashbacks were telling you not only about the character like the previous ones did, and about what the character's learning, which definitely applied to Shalon's, but especially had to do with the plot in this case. Like going through the flashbacks played with your like hope or like with your expectations of the book in this book. So that was absolutely fantastic and very, very well done. Again, mad respect for any author that uses um, dramatic irony from like the different perspectives or from flashbacks or whatnot to influence what the reader's expecting or influence um, the reader's reaction to what is happening in the book, which Sanderson is really good at. He's always been good at it, but especially in this book towards the end, he stacked up a lot of details like for and against all these different things, and you kind of really didn't know what was going to happen at all. And I love a book that out mysteried me. It is like a mystery book without being a mystery book. Like this would be an insane case to solve, like what was happening and like what would happen. And just as per usual with Sanderson, the magic fucking peak, so good. Such, again, I don't have the words to explain like how great his magic system is. As per usual, he has a strict magic system, but there's so many unknown parts of the magic system that you're learning along the way that you're just as stumped as all the characters, because the characters don't know what the magic is themselves and they're just learning it as they go, and it makes the reveals of like what they can do or the reveals of what other magic things can do just like that much bigger. And even when you do know it, it still comes to a surprise seeing how people use it. So again, fantastic, still great. um, they, again, as I was saying before, they got equal amount of diplomat, equal amount of action, the flashbacks. It jumped around. You got a good spread of characters. This one had more character perspectives than the other ones had by a bit. I think the last part had like, I want to say like 9 character perspectives. It was switching between constantly, like frequently. And there was even more than that in the other sections. So there's definitely a lot of that going on, and it definitely puts your hope on and off throughout the book. You have hope, you give up hope, you have hope, you give up hope. It's great. Also, just like the other 2 books, some of my favorite quotes I've ever read in books is in this series to this day. Still, I still will live by life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. Top tier quote. Period. I liked that quote before I started reading the series. Reading the series, I just love it more. It's hard to not like that quote. I think I said this in Way of Kings, but my email signature before I read the series, my email signature is a quote from this series, and it still is because it's fucking fantastic and I love it. So, still got the great quotes throughout the book. Great setting, great culture. I love all the cultural implications. This is the book where they brought up being gay, and I like how he did it. Like just like with all the other books, they've been trying to make a point of like how you judge minorities or whatnot. And this book also has a theme on. I'm trying not to give away the reveal. This might be a spoiler, so I might not be able to say it, but it addresses themes that relate to real life too, which is also great. So it has good themes. It like has like implications within the books that make you think, and they're having a bunch of themes on like minorities and whatnot. So mad respect for that too. And cross culture, because there's so many kingdoms working together. What is it like having those different cultures interacting with each other, and do they hate each other and whatnot, and can they let go of their past disputes? So, I again have mad respect for that too. The art is beautiful. Because I mostly did the audiobook for the later bit, I had to go back and look at the art. Let's see if I can find. Oh, I found the one I wanted. They have this beautiful art. I think these are soul casters. I can't read the text obviously because it's not English. I think these are soul casters, and they look sick. So the art, fucking gorgeous. Love it so much. Very long book though. I think it was 122 chapters plus the epilogue. Was there a prologue? I can't remember if these books have prologues. The first book had a prologue. I remember that. Did this book have a prologue? Yeah, all of them have. Oh, I remember the prologue. Okay, so plus the prologue and epilogue. So it was chunky. It was definitely over 1,000 pages. Just part 2 is 745 pages, not even including the first one. The first one is 635 pages. That is a lot of pages. So, a lot of reading, but I would not take away a chapter in this book, I don't think. I mean, I don't remember the first 30%, but I think every chapter is where it's supposed to be, which is impressive for a book. Oh, so good. I don't have the most enthusiasm in the world because when I was in the mood to do this review was when I was at work listening to like the best chapters, and then I had to quit on the last chapter at work, and then I got busy at home, and then I finally had time to read it at home, but I was tired, and so I didn't want to read the last chapter when I was tired. And today I was mostly tired until I was like, I need to finish this book. It's such a good book. So I sat down and read it, and I have half enthusiasm. But seriously, I was hopping in my seat, losing my shit reading this book the last week. Like, there have been emotions. There have been many emotions. I never really felt sad, though. Like, I wasn't ever at the point of, like, crying with this book. I definitely could have cried at how much I enjoyed it. That did not happen just because I was in the mood to today. But that's what I did with Hero of Ages. I mean, there was some emotional stuff at the end, too. But Hero of Ages, I cried from how good the book was and the experience of reading the book. This is a book where I definitely could have done that. I didn't, but definitely could have, because this is... I will say that I did get sad at one point because I realized I would never be able to read this book for the first time again. And what a book to read. This whole series, what a series to read for the first time. Like, there's probably nothing like it. Reading Words of Radiance, I keep doing Words of Radiance first. Reading Way of Kings for the first time. Looking back, I was not ready to read that book. And it will never be the same like reading it for the first time again. But that book is also so fucking good. And every time I reflect on it, I realize there's more and more and more depth to it that I missed the first time, which is part of why people reread the series so fucking much. But so much depth. Words of Radiance, that one I did appreciate a lot. I was reading it till 3 in the morning, if you recall. Also so fucking good. Oh, I'm so excited to reread. I'm so excited to reread Words of Radiance specifically, because I loved that book. I loved that book so much. Like, all the memories I have of it was me, like, losing my shit. So, that's great, and... Oh, this one was good, too. There was, like, a lull in the middle when there was, like, more diplomacy going on, but it was still, like, riveting. I don't know how else to explain it. I will say one of my few complaints, which I'll talk about spoilers, too, but one of my few complaints, because the book is so long, it skipped some scenes I would have liked to see. Like, it had the potential to show you, like, some characters' certain reactions to things, or, like, how certain things happened, but it'll skip it either to save time or to leave it a mystery. There's some of those scenes I would have liked to see. In fact, there's some of those scenes that I would have really wanted to see and begged to see, and they were not here. Which is fine. Maybe there are short stories. I don't think there's short stories. I think there's only Dawn Shard and Edge Dancer. Unfortunate. I really wanted that one story so bad. I literally, every time I messaged my friend, I was begging for it to be in this book, and he just laughed at me. And now I know why. Because it's not here. Oh well. We get what we get, and we enjoy the fucking good book he gave us in exchange. Is there anything else I can even comment on before I just dive into spoilers? Because literally every note in front of me is spoilers, I'm pretty sure. One of the things Sanderson's great at doing is he gives you so many things that can go wrong that you can't use the logic of, like, oh, it will go right because it has to for the story to proceed. He gives you so many things that can go wrong that it becomes less of a, oh, surely this can't go wrong, to a which will go wrong, which is a good way to go about it, because you can't think like, you can't use the story logic where the rule of thumb where if the author tells you how it's going to go, it doesn't go that way. That doesn't really apply because it gives you so many things that can go wrong, and one of them going wrong can affect how the others turn out, and he'll do that all in one chapter. He will toss it all to you. And he definitely, towards the end here, used the plot device of giving you multiple perspectives. Like, many perspectives per chapter, just so you can take on how much chaos is going on. Which is also great. Like, he doesn't usually do that. He'll do, like, he usually did one perspective per chapter, but sometimes he did two. But towards the end, he was doing, again, like, 5 to 9 in one chapter, just to convey how much stuff was happening all at the same time, which is crazy, but epic and awesome. Anything else? Oh, that was such a good quote. I probably shouldn't say that quote because spoiler, but oh, there's a really good quote. There's again, some of my favorite scenes and lines I've ever read are in this book, and I don't think I'm ever gonna get over it, ever. Like, I'm thinking about other series that have similar moments, and it's definitely on par with those. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Anything else? Favorite character? Yeah, still my favorite character. I'm still gonna save that for spoilers, just so I don't give away that he's in this book. But oh, I love him so much. Great character. I don't remember when that happened. There's gonna be a few points that I don't remember because there's been a lot that happened in the book, which is why I took notes. Oh, that one's so good. Oh, there's so many good moments. Holy shit. Themes on gender. That's what I meant by minorities. Like, there's a lot of themes on, like, sexism or gender or race or what kingdom you're from, where you were born, disability, though that one of my friends complained that how disability is treated in this series is like something to fix, which it is. I don't think that necessarily makes it the worst. It doesn't make it good. I'm not gonna say it makes it bad, because there still are people with disabilities in the story, which doesn't happen often at all in a lot of fantasy, which is kind of surprising when you think about it. There's usually like the guy missing an eye and the very plain stuff. But I will say that's one of the few things that I think there is legitimate argument in, is that it is a choice to do that. I would say personally it makes sense to the story. Like, it makes sense to the world that it is something that can happen given the abilities people have. My only comment on the issue. So we'll set that one aside temporarily. But most of the other groups are represented and there's themes on it. I wouldn't say that it's like represented like in your face, but it's making a point of you judge these people, but these people don't judge these people. But by judging these people, you're judging these people over here, and like doing the full circle of like how do you get to choose who you can judge. And I like that kind of theme a lot, like a lot. Let's see, anything else? Fuck, this book's good. Oh, that's also a great theme. Okay, we can't talk about that yet though. Oh, that was. Okay, there was one very emotional sequence. I did not cry, but there was a sequence where I was like I was in horror. I was in horror reading it. That's also a great sensation. So that definitely also happened in this book. Oh man, I forgot about that until I read my note, and then I was like, caricature. Why did I write the word caricature? There's a lot of things I wrote down and don't know why I wrote it. All right. I think that's all I can say. We got setting, we got characters, we got the plot, we got the magic. Flashbacks. Anything else? Fantastic book. Everyone who's thinking about reading this series, go read it. It's so good. I've recommended it to many of my friends in the last few weeks because it was worth the wait, but also I wish I read it sooner because this is so good. I need to update my Goodreads favorites immediately after this. I'm putting this like literally the very first one. So, oh, what a good book. All right, let's get into spoilers because I have things to say and a limited time. So this is your time to leave. I regrettably don't really have much water, so my voice might start dying. Oh, that water's warm. That's terrible. Okay. I can't go in chronological order because, one, I don't know what order these sticky notes go in, and I have like 6. So, can't go in order. Actually, no, this is the first sticky note from my desk. I do know that. But the rest of them, I don't know the order. And I also don't have notes from the beginning of the book. And I don't even know what a lot of these are. So I'm just going to start saying things I loved, and they're going to be out of order. I'm sorry. We'll start off with the thing I didn't like, and then we'll get to all the things I liked. The one thing I didn't like is, as I said before, we missed some reactions to things. We missed some scenes. I would have loved so much seeing Yasna and Wit's journey. Like, I wanted their interactions very badly. I wanted to know how they got there. I want to know, like, what they ran into along the way. But, like, I understand that that's adding a bit to the book. Even in a small regard, I wanted to see people's reactions to Yasna arriving, like, to the place. It skipped over Shallan's reaction, and it got her, like, afterward, like, how she was like, I guess Yasna's here. That was kind of how that reaction felt, and I was hoping for, more of a reaction. And we didn't see a bunch of other people's reaction to Yasna arriving, to Erithiu. Oh, God. Here we go again. Erithiu. The audiobook narrators say it so fast and smoothly that it's actually hard for like me to know how to say it, even hearing them say it. Erithiu. Okay, we're gonna go with that. But I really hope for some reactions. There's a bunch of other scenes like that where we didn't see people's reactions to that. We did get to see Navani's reaction to Elhokar dying. Kaladin never really did process that, did he? Like, he kept postponing processing that death. Same, Adolin. But that kind of makes sense because a lot happened at the end. The end definitely felt a little rushed. Like, the all is happy and we moved onward. Like, that felt a little rushed. We also don't know who died at the end of the book, which I didn't think about until just now. We don't know which of the bridgemen died. Some of them did. We don't know which ones. That's probably going to be in Rhythm of War, I suspect. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. We know Rock's fine. Which, no offense, is the bridgeman I care about the most. Not including Kaladin. Hmm. All right. Well, I'll look into that later. But there's several scenes like that where I wanted to see people's reactions to something that happened, or like know what happened like in the background, in the behind the scenes for certain scenes, and we didn't get that. Again, it's fine. The book is fantastic without those things. I just really would have loved some of those moments, like seeing people's reactions to things, because I do thrive off those in books. I love seeing how the different characters respond to something, especially with when you use dramatic irony as a plot device as much as Sanderson does. It's entertaining to see how that dramatic irony affects the characters. Because we knew Yasna was fine from the epilogue of the last book, um, which was awesome, and I was so hyped. Um, but then it kind of felt a little downplayed in this book. He could have probably carried out that hype a little bit more. But I am not the person to judge because he wrote a fantastic book. So that's the one thing. Um, I can't read my own handwriting because I was writing in pen. It says didn't show info shared when Cal came cared come. I'm gonna guess it has to do something with Kaladin like arriving or like being gone for a while and then finally like made it back or whatnot. It skipped people's reactions to that. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. I'm not sure. It's been a week. All of this is from like a week ago, and I don't remember it, which tells you a lot about how much stuff happened. Next, we got some of the bridge crews backgrounds. That was pretty much skipped in a lot of the previous books, but now that they're Bridge 4, it's not a part of Bridge 4 in the way they used to be. They're starting to share their backgrounds, and we start to learn that there's a lot more depth to these characters, which is fantastic that Sanderson took the time to go in depth with these different characters and show you that there's a lot more to them than just their role in Bridge 4. I think one of the biggest ones is Teft. We see Teft's point of view the most out of Bridge 4. But we also see Rock's family arrive, and we see him pick up a bow. Oh! Not only did Rock do a thing, which is great. I would have been fine if he didn't, but I also was perfectly fine with him doing it. But he did a bow. I could not have been happier. Like the fact that Rock would like used a bow. I can't explain. Like that made the moment for me. Not the fact that he saved Kaladin, not the fact that Amram was no. None of that mattered. The fact that Rock used a bow made me very happy. That's all we need to say. I love bows a lot. That I'm biased. Archery is my best friend. I did archery as a kid. I actually did archery this last weekend. So, I love me some archery a lot. So we see some background of Rock, but the main one is Teft, and we find that Teft has like a drug addiction called Moss, and we see like how bad it is for him, and he pretty much gives up on the crew. He sells his coat, which doesn't seem important, but then it comes back that someone used the coat to kill members of Bridge 4. That is one of the most cheeky slide-ins I've ever seen in a book, where the coat sounded like the most unimportant thing in the world. It sounded like giving up a sense of honor and him just feeling bad for selling the coat. And then it turns out that someone uses it. That was very well done. Like when that reveal happened, I was like, oh no, they used the coats. Like I was mind blown. So another fantastic moment. But we see a lot of bridge crews backgrounds. We see Teft like giving up on the crew, and he keeps telling his friend to go away. I forgot the name of all the extra spren. I struggle with just the main characters' names. But they all have their own spren now. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them do. That happened. And we think he gives up, but then he shows up through Earth's gate. And you don't really know who's going to come through the gate, the enemy or Teft. But it turns out Teft is the one that ends up coming through. So that was a great moment. I do wish, again, we knew what happened when Teft was having that decision, which bridge members died, because I'm pretty sure some did. We don't know. Um, if we continue, one side bullet point I want to address real quick is they had a woman join Bridge 4. There was a bit where Kaladin was like, "No, you can't," and then there was a point on like which groups of people you judge and whatnot, and he was like, "Actually, why would we not let a woman join Bridge 4?" And like she joined, and she ended up getting the power. So we have themes on like I guess like you could say feminism, like themes on how women are treated in I almost said Elakar. In there's so oh my god, I'm struggling. It starts with an A. It's the main kingdom for a lot of this book. A a a Elithkar. Okay, in Elithkar. So there's a lot of themes on that, and it carries on like throughout the book. We'll talk about some of those later towards the end too. But she's able to join, and that's the same chapter. I'm pretty sure, not where she, like the chapter where she's allowed to try. It's the same chapter where Kaladin is like being gay is okay in Elithkar, but it's not okay in your place. So like, who are we to judge? So that's where that one is, and there's a bunch of other ones too. There's also a point of view in I hate that I don't remember his name. Is it Shen? That feels wrong. It is Shen. I'm so glad I remembered that. There's a point of view in Shen's. There's a chapter or a section in Shen's point of view that gives you like some context into how he sees things, and that's also like very meaningful. I really want to see. I want to see him more. I mean, like part of the theme is that all the characters ignore him, and so you don't see him. But I want to see him more as a result of that. But also because he sounds like a fantastic point of view to have more of. So there's definitely that as well. We get a lot of Eshonai, or not Eshonai, but Eshonai's sister, Venli. I think they're sisters, unless they mean like metaphorical sisters. I'm not entirely sure. But we get a lot of Venli's point of view throughout this book, and her perspective of pretty much the death of the Parshmen in some way. The way that the storms come through and they replaced her friends. Fantastic moment. That moment was great, and like that moment where Odium comes in and says, "I have work for you." Fantastic point of view throughout the story. It keeps you guessing on a lot of different things. You keep thinking like she's gonna turn coat, but then she doesn't turn coat, and you keep going back and forth. Peak. And also the dread. Every time I reached one of her chapters, I had this dread for like what she was gonna do or what was gonna happen. Especially when there was like the sudden shifts in what she was doing, where she got like taken to the ships. I was like, oh no, something's gonna happen. And usually something did happen. So those are also some great moments. Next, 3D chess. One of the reveals throughout the story, for the first half, Kaladin. For the first half, Dalinar is trying to negotiate with the different kings and queens, and it's not really working out for the most part. And it's because he was working on it in a linear scale, pretty much. He was saying, like, I need to convince this queen and king, I need to convince this queen or king. And he's trying to do that. But off page, outside his perspective, those queens and kings are talking to each other and talking about how mad and crazy he is. And so this is one of the best examples, though there are many more in the book, of Sanderson being really good at playing 3D chess. Because he's not only keeping in mind the character's perspective, but he's keeping in mind what the other kingdoms and all these background characters that we don't even see are thinking and doing off the page. Completely off the page, nowhere near the page. That has nothing to do with the main characters or the story, like, immediately, but have consequences to them. And that's kind of crazy to me. Like, as a reader, I'm not a writer at all. I can't imagine being able to keep that level of detail on your world. That you can keep track of how each kingdom, their individuals, not only their rulers, but also their, like, religious figures and their writers and their historians can all keep track of, like, their opinions towards a certain man. And that's just the man, not even, like, the themes or, like, what they do. That is a level of depth and he puts a lot of depth into his characters too. And I'm sure that he knows a lot more about like their backstories and whatnot that isn't even on the page because he has to think about it to know how they're going to respond, and we don't even get to see it. So I was just taking in just how much knowledge Sanderson must have on this world that we don't even see, and these are already massive books. I think that's wild and crazy. From what little I've worked on my novel, I know already from what little I have that there's so much stuff that I'm not even going to be able to put in the page that I know about my characters. So I can't imagine the level of that he has for these characters in this series. Probably a lot. So, 3D chess is one of the big things I wanted to get across in spoilers. Odium meeting, the first time Dalinar meets with Odium, and the subsequent times Dalinar meets with Odium, are so good. I loved everything about it. There's not once been a meeting like that I've not liked. I'm a sucker for it. I don't know what else to say. I just love those kinds of things happening. I loved it with Gaius and Codex Alera. I loved it with insert spoiler names here in Dresden Files, because there were several. Let's just say high-powered gods. It's hard for me not to like those kinds of scenes. So as soon as Odium appeared, I knew I was in for a time, and he appeared multiple times throughout the story. He appeared towards the end. Oh, that scene's so good. We're going to get to that later, because it's one of my favorite scenes, but we see him at the end. Every scene where Odium was there, loved it. The scene where the Night Watcher was there, loved it. The other scenes where the Night Watcher was like playing a role, loved those too. All of them. I love all of them. Again, I'm a sucker for it in fantasy. It's part of what draws me into fantasy is those kinds of scenes a lot. And I love them. I don't get them in mystery. I don't often get them in historical fiction, though you can. But you get them all the time in fantasy, and I adore them dearly. We found out that Dolform is immune to Odium at some point. I don't remember when. But that's very interesting. It makes a lot of sense because Odium has control over passion, and humanity brings a lot of passion. Dolform is the opposite of passion. So, very interesting. Stone Memory chapter starts. Stone Memory chapter starts. Stone Memory chapter starts. Stone Memory. I will form this into a new idea. The beginning of the chapter things was not just one thing. Like, Way of Kings was mostly quoting Way of Kings. But in this case, it quoted a lot of different things. And it wasn't quoting Oathbringer, because it turned out Dalinar wrote Oathbringer at the end of the book, which is awesome, and I love that dearly. We'll get to that a little bit more later, too. But the beginning of the book was a lot of different things. Some of it was Spren, some of it was... Actually, there was a little bit from Oathbringer at the beginning of the book, but then it stopped, like, partway through the book. But there's a bunch of quotes to the reference, the Spren book. I don't remember the name of the Spren book, but there was definitely some for the Spren book. There was some for that book that got translated towards the end of the book, and there was some that we don't even know what it's from. You think yourself so clever, but my eyes are not those of some petty noble to be clouded by a false nose and some dirt on the cheeks. We don't know who said that, or what it's from, or anything like that. So there was a bunch of those throughout the book as well. So, like, I don't even know. I think it's per part. I think each part has a different chapter beginning. I'm going to test that theory real quick. I think it's true. Where's the end of this part? I can't even find it. Oh, interludes. Oh, wow, it ended with interludes. Wild. Okay. Oathbringer. Preface. Part 3. Oh, it has the different drawers. Yes, memories from stone. I remember. So, in Earthu, there were these drawers, and they kept, like, the memories, like, in these stones, and they stored those stones. And so, the various researchers and studiers of Elfcar were all, like, studying these stones and, like, trying to get the memories. And there really wasn't, like, that much to learn from a lot of them, but there was, like, little details, like, snuck in. And I just really loved that whole idea as a whole, and the, like, going through the memories and all those kinds of things. So I liked those a lot. Gender themes, we talked about that. Homos? Oh, I went to write homosexual and I scratched it out because I was at work. I remember. um, but no, there's themes on gender. Um, it's like a feminine thing to write, or like it's not a feminine thing to fight or whatnot. But we see characters like doing that throughout this series. We'll get to it. I mean, we'll just talk about it now. But like Azure is a woman who fights, and the men are like, don't talk about her ailment because she's female. And Kaladin realizes it's stupid and like just like flat out like asks her about it and whatnot. So there's themes on that. At the end, Dalinar learns to write so that he could write a book, and it's usually a feminine thing. And there's this little theme, there's this little tiny thing at the end of the book where he's like, you only taught me how to write a feminine I, and they're like confused like how to write a masculine I. So that's kind of silly. I really love those themes a lot in books. That's part of why I love The Expanse. The Expanse has a bunch of those. Kaladin's old face was an interesting thing. I didn't find it that funny, personally. I was kind of confused by it, so I just wanted to say that. It's not a bad thing, I was just confused. Shallan and Adolin are cute. They're one of my favorite, like, in the story romance stories I've ever read. I love the two of them together. And that's not often that I see that in books, so... And honestly, Sanderson did it also with Vin and Ellen. I love the two of them too. They did have some moments that I didn't like, especially the first two books. But by the third book, I did like the two of them together. In this case, I love these two a lot more than those two. By a lot. I love both of them. I care about the relationship. I hope that Aelin doesn't die. I would be upset. So, just saying. I love their relationship. Don't know what that means. There's the different like fucked up Spren when they finally made it to the kingdom. That was very interesting. We don't really know what that was about entirely, but really interesting. We see the Unmade, several of the Unmade. For a bit, it took me a while to realize that when we met the first Unmade, that it was an Unmade. Like even when they were saying it, I was like, "Was that?" But apparently it was. So I found that very interesting. We'll see if they're less powerful than we think they are. Also, Shallan, about the fucked up Spren, Shallan stabbed herself just to see the Spren, which is like kind of wild. And then she also like purposely tripped and embarrassed herself to see the Spren. And I really liked that character growth from her. Speaking of the character growth from her, I loved the first time she told the story. Oh, we're gonna get to one of my favorite parts. I loved the first time she told the story of the girl with the wall with the scarf and all those things. That was great. But throughout the story after that, she's struggling to figure out who she is, and she's seeing like images of Radiant and Veil, and they're kind of bleeding together, and she's really struggling to understand who she is, especially with the reveal from her that she killed her father from the last book. She's really struggling with her identity, and throughout the book, she's like trying to figure it out, and she keeps like blending back and forth, and she thinks she can do good as Veil, but then she kind of fucks up. But then a certain someone, my favorite character by a lot, I'm sorry, I can't not love him. He's just by default my favorite, just because of who he is. Wit, my man, he arrives, sees Shallan, recognizes Shallan, doesn't recognize her at first, which I also love, but recognizes her and goes, does like the eyebrow raise at her practically, not literally, but practically, and then like goes and talks to her after being Wit, as he usually is. And that whole scene, one of my favorites. Every scene with Wit is going to be one of my favorites. I'm just going to say that now. I love him. Period. No more to add. But, oh, I love him so much. So, talks to Wit, and one of my favorite quotes in the book is there where he says, "Don't trust anyone who can see the future." And then, immediately, Shallan's like, "But you can." And he's like, "Don't trust anyone who can see the future." That quote is so fucking good because it gets reused throughout the whole book. Like, not just, like, the first time where Kaladin sees the future. And that's where Shallan thinks it implies. It means the whole book. It means Renarin, who can see the future. It means Wit, who can see the future. It means Odium, who can see the future. The Night Watcher, who can also see the future. Every single one of them, you can't trust them. Also, you could probably include the Stormfather in there too. Like he can see like some semblance of it, not much, but the Stormfather has some commentary about like this is what you will do. You will fail, Dalinar. Perfect. The way that that book was implemented just for the purpose of helping Shallan, but then applied to all these point of views that had nothing to do with Shallan, that was just for the purpose of the reader being confused. So good! And I love Wit. So the fact that Wit said it is like a bonus point, but never trust people who can see the future. Which is also very interesting because seeing the future is like a frowned upon thing in Elfcar. So I wonder, I have some thoughts about the origin of some of Alucard's beliefs. Because some of it seems stupid, like, you know, women have to write and they can't fight. But some of it maybe has to do with the background of the Radiance and whatnot. So that's interesting. I'm looking out for that. Men he loved kill each other. Oh, there's that scene. Oh, that's also a fantastic scene. There's that scene where Kaladin is in the castle, and there's Elithkar and like all the people he's meant to defend fighting, and then there's the Parshmen and like Moash and them fighting, and Kaladin freezes because he knows both sides and he doesn't want to kill people on either side, which is a fantastic moment because like earlier in the book, I think that was beginning of Oathbringer when he was it the beginning of Oathbringer that he was out like looking for his family? I think it was. The books are blending together. I think it was, yeah, because at the end of the book they were all together. Oh my god. So, first of all, Kaladin going out seeing his family, and that whole sequence is great. And then him living with the Parshmen was fantastic, and I really loved that. And seeing the Parshmen being so confused when you finally saw the Parshmen after the storm and they were just people. And wondering like where's the red eye people, and then you find the fused later and you figure out what the fused are and all that. All those reveals, fantastic. And having Kaladin care for the Parshmen, fantastic. But it reaches this scene in the castle where the two sides are fighting and Kaladin doesn't do anything, and Elithkar is about to say the words, and he gets killed by Moash right at the tip of that. And you think Moash will change sides after that, but no, Moash is still on the enemy side. He's doing like bad things, so he's definitely going to be a big character for Rhythm of War and books after that. So that's definitely coming up too. But that scene is fantastic with Kaladin not knowing what to do and then feeling bad because he couldn't defend anyone. And then I didn't even write this down because this was just a few minutes ago when I finished the book. But then later in the book, Kaladin goes to check on the people that they left in the kingdom to see if they're still alive and whatnot. And he gets there and he finds them, and they say, "We protect those that cannot be protected," which is one of the words that you have to say. And they saved Elhokar's kid. So, there you have it. Which is also, I was not anticipating that at all. I just thought they all died. But nope, they're there. They're alive. So that's great. And we saw Wit at the end. Because he has to tease me with Wit at the end of every fucking book. I see what you're doing, Sanderson. And I am offended by it. I better get more Wit. I want him. I want more. All the time. That's it for that sticky note. We still have 4 more. Some of them have less, though, so hopefully this goes faster. Dalinar got drunk, and that was, like, very meaningful. He was dressed like a woman. Oh, Elhokar. Elhokar got dressed like a woman for the disguise, and he didn't bat an eye at it. I think that was very interesting, and I really liked that theme. It didn't matter that much, like, in terms of, like, the plot or anything, but it's just a very subtle thing, and I appreciated it. I wrote that Dalinar did not deserve Evie, which is from the flashbacks. All the flashbacks were great. Evie just trying to tell him not to be, like, a murderer, and he actually, like, considered diplomacy, but then he got betrayed, but then he was like, I'm gonna make them burn, and then he killed Evie himself, and, you know, the rest of the people. He killed them. That was the moment where I was just like, because like even earlier in the book, I thought he killed the child, right? But then it revealed later in the book, like halfway through the book, that he did not kill the child, and I was like, yes, and like Evie was proud of him. And then there's the scene where Dalinar's like being drunk or like getting in fights, and then he has his first kid, Adolin, I think is the first one, and then oh my god, Renarin's the second one. So he has Adolin, he has that moment, that father moment where he's like, I have a kid. That moment's great. And then it has the reveal of Gavilar like sending him out to fight, and he goes out to fight, and he's like so focused on fighting. And then Evie shows up to the war, and he gets like really upset that Evie showed up. Like he doesn't get to the point of like physical violence, but they're like arguing, they're upset. And we see that Dalinar doesn't even remember his second kid because his second kid can't fight. So we like see like those kinds of things where you're just like Dalinar no, Dalinar no. And so there's that. And then again, Evie tries to negotiate and dies, and Dalinar feels like shit, so he becomes like completely drunk, like he isn't even really living a life or being a person. And then like it occurs to him one day like what he's doing and that he can't do it anymore, especially after Gavilar died, which made him drink even more. He was like, I can't keep doing this, and so he goes to see the Night Watcher. I love the whole Night Watcher sequence, fantastic. And then he loses his memory, but then his memories start coming back. So you see him like faint when he like gets through the gate because he remembered the memories. I don't think he ever did share the memories he remembered. I think he explained to Navani what was happening, but we didn't see like him going through the memories and like explaining that it wasn't an assassin, which is what the story was. We also didn't see people react to him collapsing, which is another one of the scenes where I wanted to see people react to Dalinar collapsed before it like skipped ahead to like him drinking. But again, I understand it's a fantastic book without a need to add to that. That whole sequence, all the flashbacks, Dalinar revealing it, and like remembering it, and then reliving it, and then getting drunk again, and then in a final showdown, practically for all intents and purposes, with Odium, with that moment where you think he's going to give in because he's reliving it, and Odium's saying that he wants to take his pain, and he pretty much just says like he's looking down and he's like going through all these emotions and he's like really struggling and he's through all this pain after recalling all of this, and he just goes, you cannot have my pain. It's so good. It's so good. It's again one of my favorite moments in a book ever. The words, the exact words and everything were perfect. There's not much that could have made that moment much better. It's just like you really do think he's gonna give in. I don't necessarily think like for the point of the plot that he would give in, but there is a world. I 100% believed that Sanderson could have wrote him as a bad guy. Like I believed it. I think it is possible. He definitely could have. And because if it were any other author, I wouldn't have believed it. But because it's Sanderson, I believe he could have done it. So it's like, is Dalinar actually going to give in? Because all the characters that said it, the characters that could see the future, said that Dalinar would give in. And so you're like, is he actually? Because it felt like it. And then he's like, you cannot have my pain. And I was just like, yes! I was like, just celebrating. I was in the car when this happened, so I yelled and celebrated. And I was so hyped. And then the next scene happens where he's just like, I killed them, like, I did this, and you cannot have my pain. And he, like, thrusts one hand out, and he thrusts the other hand out, and Venli asks, like, what are you? It is Venli, right? I hope I'm not misremembering. I feel like Venli's wrong. The more I say it, the more I think it's wrong. There's Teft. I'm not gonna remember her name. And Dalinar doesn't know her name, so the one chapter I would check is probably the wrong chapter to check. I don't know. Whatever her name is, Eshonai's sister, she asks, like, what are you? As Odium is, like horrified, like, honor is dead, like, what are you doing here? And he's just like, plain and simple is the way to go with these kinds of scenes, because he's just like, I am unity. And, like, just smashes his hands together, and he brings, like, the realms together. Because the whole book, he's been having this mental, like, thing of, like, unite them, throughout the whole book. And it didn't mean people, which I knew the whole time that it didn't mean people, but I always wonder, like, what does he need to unite? And he has that scene where he, like, fixes the building and whatnot as a search binder, which is also great. But he just has the I am unity, and he like unites the realms and creates the way to bring like Kaladin and them into the world to like help fight. So good. The sequence after that, also great, but not. I don't love that nearly as much as I love that moment. That moment might be my favorite in the book. Period. I just everything about that was perfect to me. No notes. Anyway, we went on a side rant about Dalinar because he got drunk. He got drunk. I love everything about Dalinar's story in here. Dalinar is probably maybe my second favorite character behind Wit. If Wit didn't count, it probably would have to be Dalinar. I love him with my soul. And I love Shallan with my soul. I also love Kaladin, just less. Kaladin didn't do as much spear fighting as I'd like. Maybe that's something I miss about Way of Kings. We saw Kaladin with the spear a lot with Way of Kings, and he had that badass moment where he's doing the kata and like all those things. He doesn't fight much with the spear anymore, and I miss when he fought with the spear and was storm blessed and whatnot. We don't see a lot of that right now, which is fine because it makes sense to the plot that we don't see it, but I miss it. There's something Kaladin and badass and something I adore with that. So that's another thing. We already talked about that. Stormlight can make you not have to breathe, which was very interesting. I didn't think about that, but it actually kind of makes sense. I'm realizing I misspelled Veil the whole time I took these notes. Sadeas's death ended up mattering, and it came up a lot later than I thought it would. But the fact that Adolin had to investigate his own murder also peaked, and that was very interesting to see. And there's that scene where Shallan and Adolin like shared their secrets and whatnot, and she's still keeping secrets from Yasna, which is also very interesting as well. I love span rates. I don't really need to say anything else. Just the concept of span rates is awesome. I don't know why I wrote caricature. Oh, Parchment imitating the country they're from. Such a subtle theme, but like when you think about it logically, it makes a lot of sense. And you see the characters like realizing that, and I think that's also very interesting. It's because, like, what do you do? Like, when you put a lot of thought into like what is happening there, there's some like good themes hidden behind it. Wait, Dalinar and Shallan both forgot Wit knows Cosmere. Wit, I love him. You can see. Wit, I love him, written at the bottom. Because I was very excited. I don't remember what Dalinar and Shallan both forgot. I don't know what that note is about. But I know Wit knows about the Cosmere. And I know that Wit is in... Hello? Is in the sequel series for Mistborn. He's in it. I've read it. I read Wit in there. Did not know I did. So I need to reread it, which I will when I read Lost Metal because it's been too long. But like when I reread it, I'm gonna be looking for Wit because apparently Wit talks to Wayne in the sequel series of Mistborn, and I missed it somehow. I don't even know how. Probably because I didn't know who Wit is, but he was right there. So I'm gonna do that again. Also, I keep thinking in my head that Wit has white hair, but he has black hair, I'm pretty sure. But I always picture him with white hair, probably because I love him, and so I just associate white hair with him by default, which happens. But yeah, I love Wit, and he knows about the Cosmere. I think he knows about a bit more than the Cosmere. He's very knowledgeable, and we learned officially that he is very old, which is what I suspected. And he has knowledge, and all he does is just know what he thinks he has to do. And I love him so much. And he can do illusions. Oh, I love him so much. Next bullet point, I love the Wit and Shallan combo. The way, they banter so well. Like, the way they were bantering back and forth. Oh, it's so good. I love a good banter in my books. I wrote, I love Wit 2 more times. We miss a lot of dialogue. We did miss the rest of the team's reaction to Shallan finding Wit. I feel like it would have been interesting to hear, like, Elokar or whatnot, and like the rest of them react not only to Wit's presence, but like what Wit said. But we kind of skipped over that too. So again, there's a few reactions we skipped. Enjoy life. Love themes on the Thrill. The Thrill is also a fantastic theme because it is passion and it's an Odium's power. God, my nose just keeps itching. The thrill is part of Odium's power, but like when you think about like real life, the thrill is a pretty significant theme when it comes to like the military and stuff. I grew up in a military family, not the kind of family where that's like relevant, but like I've heard of it and I know it's a thing. So I love how it's like its own force in the series. Um, there's a theme on the 10th Dawn light eyes. Kaladin was always like anti light eyes, but he finally like meets this like division of like all light eyes like in the military, and he realizes that there's a difference between the different dawns of the light eyes, and he doesn't hate the lower dawns, and so he starts. This is one of those first cracks in your judgment when you're thinking about when you're, I guess you could say like when you're like against a minority or whatnot, you're starting to have that change of heart where you're starting to realize I shouldn't judge these people. Uh, that was one of the first cracks for Kaladin's case because he was like, I don't hate these people. Like they are light eyes, but they are more like me than I thought they were. And so he starts having those moments where he's like, oh, maybe I don't have the right to judge these people. Army good to have if elsewhere. Army good to have if elsewhere. What good is an army? I don't remember that quote. I remember loving that quote. I'm pretty sure it has to do with Dalinar or one of the other rulers, saying it's good to have an army if it's elsewhere. Or Kaladin said it when he was talking to the people in his thing. It's good to have an army if it's not here. I remember that. I definitely remember that quote, and I loved that quote. Let's see. Oh yeah, Shallan's team ended up getting powers themselves, which is very interesting. I actually forgot about that. I love Azure. Like throughout the whole time Azure was there, I loved Azure. Shallan got very depressed. There's a lot of themes on emotion. I wrote stabbed to Spren. I don't remember what Spren got stabbed or how. I'm not sure about that. So, shrug. I don't remember that. It's funny remembering what little I knew when I started the series. Mental health is a theme in this book, and I have mad respect for that. Warbreaker's sword is written there. I don't remember why. The Assassin in White ends up coming back and joining Dalinar's team at the end of the book, which is very interesting. Perspective pattern change is a plot device. I talked about that already. Dalinar's having a bad time. We talked about that. Seeing the future from the enemy's point of view, which is very interesting. What the? I can't read my own handwriting. Oh no. You Parseval. I have no idea what that says. The whole sequence where the ruby is being stolen is very interesting, and the one person kind of managed to save the day, and that was awesome. Mostly, I think the ruby did get stolen, but then they got the ruby back in the following sequence where he locked the thrill in the ruby. All the Taravangian scenes were very interesting because we have the traumatic irony of knowing what Taravangian has been doing to some degree, but not some of the other things he's been doing. That's another thing. Because we know some of the bad things Taravangian has done, it's easy for Sanderson to hide the other bad things he's doing and make us not suspect it, because we know he's already doing certain bad things. So there were some reveals at the end where we realized he did some of the other things, like lead the army into Earthiu and recently join Odium. It's probably pretty bad. But some of the scenes with Taravangian where Dalinar and him are talking is very interesting, like how they talk about it and how they approach politics and stuff. So that's cool. I relate to Shallan in some ways when it comes to identity. We probably don't have the time to get into this, but some of the identity struggles that Shallan is having, I related to decently. Not even gender and stuff, but I mean, I'm sure that applies too. But in terms of like thinking, like, am I the kind of person that would blank? I have a lot of that, like a lot of that actively. I've had that pretty much today. I've been having that thing where I'm like, am I the kind of person that would blank, and can I allow myself to be that person? Um, so I loved all of those themes, period, because I relate to it a lot. I also loved Adolin's point of view, pretty much throughout. Um, we're on the last sticky note. So many things to go wrong that you don't know which it will be. Odium planned for Dalinar and Renarin. Renarin was very interesting. I didn't think Yasna would kill Renarin, but I also thought Renarin and Yasna could have died together. I thought maybe Yasna would have like harmed him but not killed him, or killed his friend or something like that, or locked him away. Like there were a lot of things I thought Yasna could have done. And when I realized Renarin was like bad, but then there was also me thinking like maybe he's not like bad, he's just partially bad. It was also very interesting that his fits are him seeing the future, and it's bad to see the future in that kingdom. So it was very well done. I keep preaching the choir here, but it was well done. A lot of action jumping to show the depth of Odium. You cannot have my pain. One of my favorite quotes ever. Oh, it's so good. All of it was fantastic. It's all so good. Can I think of anything else to add? Obviously, there's many more fascinating scenes. I love the Spren that was copying people that Shallan was investigating, where there was like the kill after the kill. I love when Shallan is as Vale is like being like more like blunt and direct, and like just stabs that one man through the hand, and she's just like, I'm badass, and like walks off. Work. I love her. I love Shallan a lot. She's also one of my favorites. All her notebooks. I love she sees her parents when she's doing like the mass illusion, and she's sitting there crying, and then fucking Lift. I think it's Lift. Just comes by and is just like, are you gonna stop crying? I love Lift entirely as a character. She's entertaining as hell. I love that she turns away Dalinar, but then sees Odium, and she's like, I'm joining your side. That was very entertaining. All of the visions, when Dalinar realized that he could bring people in the visions, he starts bringing people in visions. I love when he brings Venli or Eshonai's sister, I'm mixing up names at this point, into the vision, and Odium appears. Like, all that's great. There's a lot of good stuff. I love the Stormfather. There's a lot of good stuff. I love this book dearly. I am excited to read it again in 1 year. We're going to have to wait a while, because I got to finish Rhythm of War before we can get there. Speaking of what's new and what's next, because I can't think of what else to talk about, even though I'm sure there are many other. Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. The next book, I bought it. I'm pretty sure I bought this after my last book review video, so this is our first update in a while. I bought Rhythm of War. It's 2 parts, just like the other one. It's also chonky. It's also pretty chonky. I don't think I'm going to start it immediately. I think I'm going to read a book in between, which we'll talk about in a minute, because I don't think I have it with me. I do not have it with me. But I'm probably going to read a book in between. But this is the next on the agenda. It's possible, if I time this right, that book 5 will be out when I finish this. And so I might aim for that, because I think he just finished another draft of book 5. Let's just go to his website real quick. He has a beard now. Just a side comment, Sanderson grew out a beard, and it kind of jump scared me when I saw it. Stormlight 5 4.0 revision, 100% done. So, is it called Wind and Truth, or is that something else? Restart map. Restock. What got restocked? Interesting. It is called Wind and Truth, and it's expected December this year. So if we time this right, I would have to rent it from the library, and that's going to be a really long line. That's going to be an insanely long line. But I can read it around December, if we're lucky. So if we time this and have this take a while, like this book took me a while, it's possible. But this is next on the agenda. The 2 other books, maybe even 3 to 4 other books I'm considering reading. Some of them are the What's New books, so I'll just do those there. But I might read The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin, because I loved Left-Handed Darkness, and the person I'm dating would be interested in me reading it. 3 Body Problem is also on there, because so many people have recommended me 3 Body Problem, and I've wanted to read it. So I think it might be time to do 3 Body Problem. But on the other hand, I've done a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, and I think it might be time that I get away from fantasy and sci-fi. Let me just grab all these, because I have a lot, because I bought more books. And this isn't even all the books I bought. There's more at my house. But that was a reach. I can also read a mystery book. I got 2 new mystery books. I have Robert B. Parker's Small Vices. If you don't, I assume most of you don't know Robert B. Parker. He's an older mystery writer. He wrote from, like, he was born in the 30s, I think. I don't want to be wrong. Hold on. I might be thinking of a different author. No, yeah, he was born in the 1930s. And he was writing from, like, his early years until he died in 2010. Like, he died writing his next book. So he has a lot of books. Like, even, like, at a used bookstore, which is where I got this, like, there was 4 shelves of his books. Like, there's 4 shelves worth, and they didn't have all of them. So he has a lot of books. But he writes these very quick mystery reads. And so I'm kind of tempted to read this, because it's very small. And I haven't read mystery in a hot minute. But part of why I've been collecting some of Robert B. Parker's books, but haven't read them yet. He's one of Jim Butcher's favorite authors. Like, this is probably Jim Butcher, when he gets asked, like, his favorite author, like, over time, it's been Robert B. Parker. He has a lot of, like, favorite authors currently, which makes sense. But Robert B. Parker, Small Vices. And I got this because it has a cool cover. I'm not going to lie. I bought the 1st book and the 4th book before. I don't know specifically of the Spencer series. He has other series too. I don't know which number this is, but because it's mystery, it doesn't matter what order you read it. You just read it. This is like number something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this is an old copy. It doesn't even have the rest. And it's out of order. Very helpful. But I think this is towards the end, the middle. Oh, I also bought The Professional. Okay, so here's what I did. The reason why I chose this one, after looking at the list of books at the store, this one's in the middle. So I have God Wolf Manuscript, which is the 1st book. I have Promised Land, which is the 4th book. I have The Professional, which is towards the end of the books he wrote. And I have Small Vices, which is in the middle. So now I have, like, I can see how he progressed as an author. That was part of why I got this one. And also because it's a cool cover. With the little devils, with the thing. Small Vices. Usually I don't like reflective covers, but I think with this book it kind of fits. I also bought a Lewis Penny book. It was actually, I wasn't planning to get it, but then I saw there was a hardcover for like $7, and I was like, yeah, I'll take a Lewis Penny book for $7. So I got a Lewis Penny book. I chose this one because it has the pretty cover, though I almost got the one with the Eiffel Tower with like all the swirls, because I remember when that book came out. But I grabbed this one instead. I've never read Lewis Penny. I've seen her name all over different things. I've seen all kinds of reviews for her and whatnot, but I haven't had the chance to read any of her books. So I thought maybe it was time. So I got one of her books as well. Also a mystery writer. I haven't read the description or anything. My plan is to just read it without reading the description or knowing what it's about. I'm pretty sure this is also a quick read. Like, as per usual with mystery books, it's kind of big text. It's not the biggest text, but it's kind of big text. I don't think it's too long, but I think it's probably longer. Definitely longer than Robert B. Parker. His books are very short. So, I got a Lewis Penny book, which I also am considering reading. Because I haven't read mystery in a while, and I do kind of miss it. I also bought Noir by K.W. Jeter. I did read the back of this book. Initially, I was planning to just grab a book without reading the back. But it was a used bookstore, and I knew there were a lot of books we had gone through that I knew I wouldn't have liked, so I went ahead and read the back. This sounds like an interesting book. It's definitely possible I won't like it. So this one's one of my more risky picks. But pretty much reading the back. L.A. the sparkling oh my God, we're already messing this up. L.A. the sparkling metropolis at the new center of what is left from the civilized world. Here, wealthy men and women seek forbidden thrills through a system that enables them to indulge safely and anonymously in their wildest fantasies through the use of computerized civilizations known as prowlers. Then a young executive at one of the world's most powerful corporations is brutally slain, and an ex-information cop named McNeil is called in to find the dead man's still living prowler. Living, in quotes. McNeil knows he's walking into a trap, but he wants a chance to redeem himself for a botched job that forced him into retirement years ago. Teamed with the ruthless female operative known as November, McNeil is about to enter a world in which no one can be trusted and things are far worse than they seem. A world in which a vast conspiracy of evil is about to blur the razor-thin line between the sane safely of the daylight and the dark danger of noir. I think it sounds very interesting. This is a world I could love. We'll just see if I do. It sounds like one of like the heavier, like more grimdark, not grimdark, but you know what I mean, like a more grimdark-esque side of the spectrum of what I read. So we'll see. There's bullet points. I was just scrolling through and I just saw bullet points. Bullet points. Interesting. So this is a more risky read. I'll probably read it down the line, not soon. But I'm always curious to know if these books that I randomly grab are good. So I will get to it. I wish I brought Master of Jinn with me, because I would read Master of Jinn. I think these are the only books I have that I bought recently, other than the Dameron Guide, which I do think I told y'all about the Dameron Guide. Or at least I said I was going to make a video on it, and then I never did. I'm sorry. I will. I promise. One day. I've been busy. Did I buy any other books I can remember off the top of my head? Pattern. Oh, I love Pattern. I love Pattern. I love Syl. And I love the Stormfather, as I said. Thinking. I don't think I bought any other books. I might have. I might not have. I'm not sure. If I did, they're at my house. And I don't think I bought any ebooks, because ebooks have been kind of expensive. I haven't checked recently, but before the court case, they were expensive, so I haven't looked. But that's the dealio. Not entirely sure what I'm going to read next. It might be Dispossessed. I think it might be a mystery book, because I've not read mystery in a hot minute. And I do need I need a fantasy break, because these books are too big. So I think that's what we're going to do. After Stormlight is done, that is a very tough call for me. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next. I brought the First Law Trilogy with me. I think the First Law Trilogy might be trudging a little bit too close to Sando. Same with Faithful and the Fallen. That might be trudging too close to Sando. It might be time for Dune. I've been thinking about it a lot. I think it might be time for Dune. Just the first book, not the series. We will read the series one day, don't get me wrong. Same thing with Ender's Game. We will read the rest of the series for Ender's Game. But I think it might be time for Dune. But that might be a bit of a chonky read after Stormlight. So we will see. Things may happen, things may not happen. I will probably be moved out by the time we reach that point, so I might have access to my books again. I'll have access to my full bookshelf August 24th-ish, around there. So if the current books I'm on take that long, then we'll see. If I start Rhythm of War by then, I'm sure we'll be fine. Alright, I'm sorry for the super long video. It's hard to not do a super long video when you have books by Brandon Sanderson. Sorry, but it's true. And I will see you all whenever I read my next book. Hopefully sooner rather than later, unlike this last time. Bye-bye.